You know what it is? I love it.
Alright, this video is about street hustling. Street hustling's everywhere. It may not be in your neighborhood. In the neighborhood I'm in, it is constant. I get street hustled every single day. It's usually just something small, like somebody asking me for money at a street corner, or I'm at a gas station and somebody says their car broke down, they need some money, can I help them? These are all different forms of just a hustling attitude that happens. People who I think live in the suburbs come downtown occasionally and they're shocked by it, that there's this hustling happening and they don't know what to do with it. And sometimes I'll give talks, and I'll give talks that are about poverty in America and this and this and this and this. And then I'll just mention, should you give the guy $5 who's begging on the side of the street? All of a sudden, all the attention in the room is focused. That's the question they most want the answer to, is what to do with this guy who's hustling. All the deeper questions aren't as important as what to do with that guy. And so let's talk about it. What is that guy doing? And maybe not just him, but what happens if you get in a situation where you're dealing with someone and the con gets a little bit more involved? Let's talk about that. In all of these cons, it's always about cash. They don't take credit card, they don't take, check, they don't take anything. They don't want you to buy it for them. They want cash. Cash is key to a con. So know that going in, that if the whole thing's shaping up where cash is the only way it's going to happen, you're not going to pay their bill for them and get the receipt. You're not going to write the check to a third party or buy them something and deliver it. It's got to be cash. Your alarm should go way up, and it's almost never a good idea. It's almost always a con. Also, part of all of the street hustles is social pressure, and it's usually twofold. The first, most obvious part of it is, you're a good Christian, you're a nice person, you're a do-gooder, you're a missionary, you're me, and you're supposed to be helping the poor. And somebody says they're stranded and their kid is hungry and needs milk and they don't have money for a car and they were going to Colorado and got stuck here or whatever. There's pressure on you to do the right thing, to not turn away someone in need. And it's like this kind of like moral guilt component that can make you override your reason. And it can make you do things that you're like, this doesn't seem right, but I just want to discharge this this social pressure that you feel under, which is not God's will, is not holy, is not doing good, is not helping the problem. Forget that for a second. You're not doing this so that you don't feel guilty. That is not the way you go about helping the poor. The other way that social pressure builds is often in a more involved con. There is social pressure that someone's putting on you, like, I would be so humiliated if you came in and paid my bill for me. I feel like I need to do that myself. Or I don't want them to see you helping me. Or somehow there's something like this going on that is putting pressure to maybe make it into a cash situation. Make it to a situation where you can't get the receipt, or you have to trust them, or all these things. And they're putting social pressure on that, as if they've been disrespected by you, who they asked for help. And that's this second layer of social pressure that's also baloney and needs, just know that the con is into the works when these things start to happen. So besides those two things, there's something also to keep in mind, that there's this kind of weird disrespect that happens when someone's trying to con someone else. I don't even know exactly how to summarize it, but the person that someone cons is not the person someone goes to for help. If you're a drug addict and there's people you see as marks, as the victims of your cons, who are enabling you, who you're either stealing from or begging money from, and they're enabling your habit, you never go to them when you need real help. So when you become a mark and you let yourself be a mark, you not only did not do ministry, but forget doing future ministry. And this could be a parent to a child, it could be any type of situation. Something that I thought was interesting was, the Catholic worker movement is an interesting movement where there's a lot of help given to the homeless in a very solidarity mindset, extremely solidarity, where you might have a community that might be a democracy and everyone's voting, and you have someone who is struggling not to commit a felony on a given day voting, and you have someone who is going to mass every day and has a PhD voting, and they're all getting one vote, and they're all part of the same community, and it gives dignity and it humbles at the same time, and it's a very beautiful thing. And I was at a Catholic worker house once, and a guy came in, and he was my age and looked like he had it together, and he said that he was from the Catholic worker in New York City. And immediately you think, well, what's that mean? Does that mean that you're homeless or just out of jail or struggling? Or does that mean that you just graduated college and wanted to do a couple years of service and work at the Catholic worker? Or just because you're a member of the community doesn't mean anything about it? And I hung out with him for a while, and he was, it was nice, it was enjoyable. And after he'd been, he would come to our soup line, and he'd ask to help, and we let him help, but he'd also eat. So that also didn't clear up what his main motivation was for coming. And one day he came in, and he was so upset. And he was upset because he was walking down the street, and a guy was walking down the other side of the street, and the guy on the other side of the street came over and tried to hustle him. And he was upset because that guy didn't realize that he was a guy like him, that he was a wise guy, that he was not someone to be hustled. He was made into a mark, right? And he felt so upset. I mean, it kind of showed that maybe he was struggling with some emotional issues, how upset he was, but he was so upset that he'd been disrespected by someone just trying to hustle him. But he's right, in a way. Like, there's something very disrespectful about it at times. And you might think what I'm saying is weird, because you'll think, well, if some mom doesn't have food for their kids and they ask you for help, they're not disrespecting you. And no, they're not. And that's very beautiful, right? But when you're dealing with the guy at the side of the highway, that's not what's happening. I say that almost categorically. It's 99%, And if you give money in those situations and you pat yourself on the back that, I did my part and whatever he does with it's on him, you need diligence too. You need to let the alms in your hand sweat until you've given them away, and investigate, worry about how to do these alms, to get them to do, in a sense, build the kingdom with these alms, not just be like creating drug addicts with these alms. So there's always this disrespect about it. There's also something about the hustle that I would call an addiction. It's like some people love to hustle. I've been like begged for just something simple like a pencil, and I give the pencil and I walk down the street 30 minutes later, and I see that same pencil on the ground 2 houses away from where I handed it to the guy, because the guy just wanted to see if he could get it. He didn't actually want it. And that's happened multiple times. There's a situation where we have a policy at Simple House of never giving out cash. One time we were on an outreach on Thanksgiving where we're going to everywhere in the neighborhood, and a guy addressed some volunteers and said, I'm a diabetic, I'm breaking down, I need cash to get on this bus, to go to the hospital, to get my meds, and, doesn't necessarily make sense. And they gave him cash, and he got on the bus, and he also took our card so that he could get future help from us. And then he kept showing up at my door all the time asking for, money, and I'd say no to money, and I'd offer him food, but we deliver food. Even if you're homeless, we deliver food. And then he would say, okay, well, here's my address, and it was a fake address, and he used to go and stay at this friend's house and make sure he was the one who answered the door right when we would approach, and he'd always bother us to come at exactly the right time and everything. And I don't even think he was eating the food. And what he used to also do is, when I would open the door and he'd be there again asking me for money, he would be pointing at things in the house behind me and asking me if I needed them, as if it was just like anything that struck him, he probably needed that, And it was just like he was playing. I'd almost say he was scoring points by whatever he could get from us, and I don't even think it was valuable to him. I've also been approached. This will happen to anybody who's been in the inner city for a while, I think you get approached by like 5th graders, 6th graders who are asking you for stuff, hustling you, you know. And sometimes there's like a whole group of them, and one of them's asking, and they're showing off, you know. There's this all this aspects to it, you know. Last night I was at Walmart, and in the Walmart parking lot, I'm kind of amazed. It only amazed me after the whole scene had ended. A kid who was maybe 12, 13, well-spoken, whatever, on a bike, was just riding his bike real slowly by, and he goes, "Sir, can I get money from you so I can get a cab and go home?" And I go, and I do my typical, "No, sorry, I can't help you." And he rolls off, and I'm thinking, well, you're on a bike. And then I'm thinking, why aren't you riding the bus? Why do you need a cab? And I'm thinking, I should totally call your mom. But these are parts of street hustling, and somebody must be falling for it, or that kid's not riding around the Walmart parking lot on his bike, barely slowing down to try to hustle you. Anyway, all this parts of street hustle. Sometimes, besides this addiction to hustling, which just, in the case of the guy who we gave money to that one time, who then made us a mark again and again and again and again and again, he hardly ever got anything out of us after that first situation where volunteers gave him cash without permission from the ministry. It just became such a time suck. You know, like every time he'd come to the door, it'd be 30 minutes, then have to plan everything, and then deliver it, and then drive over there and do all this stuff. And it happened again and again and again. He hardly got anything out of the con, but it was just such a waste, you know. And let me bring up one more situation about involved cons. I feel like I'm skipping around, but I had a friend who was doing a good job. She was trying to help the homeless. She was a professional, and she became, you know, acquainted with a guy in a wheelchair. And, you know, he asked her for money for drugs, and she said, well, money for prescription drugs, not heroin. And he said, or maybe it was for heroin, but he told her for prescription drugs. And he said, you know, I need medical help. She goes, well, you know, I've got friends who can help you, or we need to get you real help, not like just $20, but we need to like really get you on a prescription drug plan or Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever, get this sorted out. So she called me and she said, Clark, I need you to help me help this guy. And I started listening about it. I was like, wow, you know, really? You know, like he's really in this situation. And then the more I said, well, tell him we have to meet him someplace, not where you normally meet him, but wherever he's staying. And she did that. He was staying at an old folks home, you know, a government-subsidized senior living center with quite a few people who are handicapped. And I was like, and he really needs medical prescriptions? So I kind of knew things were wrong, you know. But I was, like I said, social pressure. Like I was under pressure from my friend to see it all the way through because, you know, there always is a 1% chance it's not wrong. So we go there and I meet with him and he explains why he needs it, how he'd be ashamed if he, you know, had someone else buy his prescriptions for him, how really all his paperwork is on the way, but in this meantime he needs this assistance. And he's just contacting people totally outside his normal web of human relations for this help. Not asking his family, maybe because of social pressure again, that's also a sign of the con, and that we can't go buy him the meds because it'd be so humiliating in front of the pharmacist or whatever, once again the social pressure thing. So I finally said, and I'm in social pressure because I'm sitting here in front of my professional friend and I'm like, I don't want to just tell this guy no, this guy in this wheelchair who says he needs drugs to be well, you know. And so we say yes, so we all drive down to the CVS. I hand him the cash. He goes into the CVS. We wait. And there's a back door to the CVS, and he rolled right out the back door and went on his way. So we were a mark, right? And it's so frustrating when you're trying not to be a mark and you're made a mark anyway. Another situation that I think has some lessons about street hustling is also forwarded to me by someone else. You know, not someone somebody else made a contact with, but there was a woman asking for help to some religious order priests, I think, and we were put in contact with her as people who would know how to help her. And we went to meet her, and she wanted to meet not where she lived, but not secluded place. We went to meet her in front of a hospital, And we met her, and she explained how she's a battered woman, and how she's staying at a battered woman's shelter, and how she needs to buy clothes and uniforms for her kids. Just FYI, most battered women's shelters would already help you with all of that. Wouldn't be necessary to ask someone else. And so I heard that, and what I did wrong was she was so sympathetic and so sad and so drew me in, that what I did is I kept leading her with questions. And I've noticed that this is like the worst thing you can do. It's like a trick not to do this. You'd be like, I'd heard that women who'd faced a lot of abuse would have like a puffy or swollen face. Well, her face was extremely swollen. I just said, "Oh, were you hit in the face or something like that?" And she'd be like, "Uh-huh." And I'd be like, "Oh God, I can see it's puffy." And she's like, "Yeah." And just like, you just kind of like lead someone along where you're helping them do the con. If you're a fan of Downton Abbey, the dude who came back and impersonated this, all the scenes that he impersonated the heir to Downton Abbey, but he had like a mask on his face or whatever from an injury. If you're a fan of that show, everything he did was this lead-on con with the girl. I don't know how the scriptwriters are going to end that, but that's exactly the way a con works. You say, "Oh, you'd remember this." "Oh yeah, I do remember that." Or you're feeding them how to lead you through the con, and avoid that at all costs. One of the most insightful things I heard, and this is my last piece of advice. So basically, if there's a lot of social pressure, get rid of it or just quit right there. If it has to be cash, quit right there. Don't know that sometimes it's an addiction and it won't make sense. Like, people will just be hustling you because you're a mark and they're disrespecting you. They're not going to receive real help from you in the future. But also, I was visiting my parents, and they had this military channel, and they were following around these Marines in Iraq. And this one 19-year-old Marine, it was his job to go interview people in the village to find out like where the bomb was or who had done the bomb or whatever. And that was his job. And he was 19, never been to college, but he was amazing. And he had this translator with him, and he would just like ask questions and he would play dumb. He'd just ask questions and play dumb and listen and listen and listen and just ask questions. Then he'd go to the next house, ask questions, and the whole time he's just comparing his answers. And he called the thing circle talk. You just talk in circles, and you just let them kind of do all the talking and put everything out there. And, if it's airtight and holds water and everything like that, then it's probably true. If it's confirmed by everyone in the line, it's probably true. But if it's a lie, it just ends up being exposed via the circle talk, So lots of times when I'm doing ministry and I'm working with the homeless up and down the street, and if something happened, like somebody was arrested or a crime was committed or something, the way you deal with rumors and the way you deal with cons is you just ask the same question that you already kind of know the answer to a lot of people, and you just hear their takes, and you kind of, from getting all those takes, sift out the truth, And in a con, it's just kind of like that in the sense that you don't want to lead and egg on the con. You just want to kind of like let them go, ask some questions, and sift out the truth of it. So, as I guess a take-home point, if I need to have a take-home point, I would say, if you want to give money to help with homelessness, give money to homeless shelters, give money to a Simple House, give money to homeless outreach organizations, particularly those that are really sitting down with people, talking with them, loving them, building a relationship. But don't give money to street hustling and panhandling.